Great. Perfect.
Okay, we're gonna give it another few seconds to let everybody in. And all our students, welcome to our second night in this symposium. Like before, put in your favorite emoji, just so I know you can hear me and you hear the judges. Oh, perfect. Yes, I love it. Awesome, and I'll have the chat open. Feel free to, at any time, write your questions, and once I'm done talking, I'll tell them your questions, and yeah, we're gonna have a fun night. Just a few more moments. Okay, perfect. So I guess we're just gonna start by introducing our little panel. Let's see. Okay, so let's start with Deanne. Deanne, can you introduce us to yourself, your background? How did you get started?
Oh, okay. Hey, hey, everybody. I'm Deanne Foley. I am a local director. I've worked in, I think, short films and feature films, and worked as a director in television as well over the last 20 years. And I'm really happy to be part of this panel, and certainly open to hearing all your questions. So yeah, that's me.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. And let's go with you, Gerry. Can you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Gerry Rogers, and I am a filmmaker. And I have predominantly made documentary films, and I've been doing that for about 30 years, which is a long time. I've been really lucky. I've made a lot of documentaries. I've won numerous awards, and that's because of the incredible people that I have worked with in terms of who've been in the films, and then the incredible teams and crews that I have worked with. So I'm really excited about documentaries. Can't wait to talk about them with you all. But to know that primarily documentaries are films, they're movies, they're about stories, they're about taking people to places that they can't go on their own. So I'm really looking forward to this. Thanks so much for having me. And Deanne Foley is a kick-ass, fabulous filmmaker. We're so lucky to have her tonight. It's just so great to be able to have her tonight. I'm looking forward to hearing from her.
Likewise, Gerry.
Thank you, Gerry. Thank you so much. And Pat, what about you? Happy to see you too.
Hi, happy to be here. I'm Patrick Condon. I'm a director and producer based in St. John's. Done short films, feature films, done some television, getting more involved in television in the coming year. And yeah, I'm the judge for sort of the genre horror, sci-fi stuff. And really looking forward to hearing what everybody has to say and seeing all the submissions. Happy to be a part of it.
Awesome. Great. Well, this is our panel for this hour. And I also forgot to introduce myself, so I guess I'll also do that. Hello, everybody. I'm Arlette Lazarenko. I'm a newcomer, recently just got here, and I'm a CNA journalist, student, not a journalist yet. And I will be the host of this panel today. And let's get right into it. So let's see, who am I going to pick on first? Gerry, you just talked about working with other people. Can you share with me, what is your experience with working with other people? How important is that?
Well, for the most part, filmmaking is a real team effort, and the director, and I've been a director, I've also been a producer. The director's role is to try and communicate a vision of what they're trying to do, what they're trying to say, and then allowing people who do camera, who do sound, who do writing, whatever, allow them to bring their skills and their expertise to the table to help the director realize that vision. In documentary though, like folks can basically make films just on their phones, and sometimes people will make their film on their own. They can shoot with their phone, they can edit. But I have always worked with a crew and with a professional crew. And it's amazing also what can happen in the editing room. I've been very, very lucky to work with incredible editors, especially Terry Nash. She edited two of the films that they're being downloaded as we speak. And I hope that the students will have a chance to take a look at them. We'll give them the link so that they can take a look at them. So there are amazing things that can happen in the editing room. And sometimes what people do with editors is that they do a paper log of all the stuff that they've shot, and then they write out their shot list, and they do a paper edit, and they tell the editor, I want you to cut here, and I want you to cut there, and I want you to cut here. And that's not how I work. I believe that an editor is a filmmaker as well. And it's amazing what can happen to your story and what can come alive in the editing room when you work with someone and respect their approach, respect their expertise, respect their commitment to what you are trying to do. So there was one time in my life though when I made a film called My Left Breast, and it was about my own breast cancer. Made that about it was released in the year 2000. So wow, that's 21 years ago. And I thought I was going to die. And I thought this was probably going to be the last film that I would ever make. And it was a very personal film. And it's not really about breast cancer. It's really about love and connection and relationships and love and joy. And that's basically what all our films are about. And I was going to do that with a crew, with a professional crew, with a camera person and a sound person, etc. And then I realized that I couldn't do that film that way, that myself and my partner, Peg Norman, we shot the film ourselves and we did the sound ourselves. And that was a whole other experience. And it's a surprise. And that's the thing about documentary films. And I know Deanne and Pat will talk to you as well about surprises and things that you don't expect in the filmmaking process, but particularly in documentaries, what you want to do, you don't want to do a lecture. You don't want to just tell people about an issue. You can write a pamphlet for that, or you can write a book. But basically, if you're using film, you want to go somewhere. And when I say go somewhere, you want to take people somewhere where they would never go on their own. And there has to be a surprise. There has to be a reveal. There has to be something that's unexpected, that really kind of pulls you in, that touches your heart, that touches your mind. And working with a crew or on your own, and a lot of people now will work on their own because they have access to the means of production, that it's still about telling a story and going somewhere really different where people haven't been before.
Thank you for that. That was beautiful. Deanne, I want to move to you. What do you think makes a good story?
Yeah, well, I think when I think of story, and then I think of, films, and the films that have, the ones that I remember, the films that I love. And I really think it comes from a film or a story that's emotionally engaging. I think of being a kid and seeing E.T. for the first time and remembering how that film made me feel, right? And so I think when we're talking about stories, how do we tell a good story? It has to be a story that engages with us emotionally, and much like what Gerry is talking about, a story, with some of the best stories, like the stronger the conflict, the stronger the story. You have somebody wants something and there's something standing in their way. And, ultimately filmmaking and stories are about transformation, and we're going to go on our hero's journey, and we're going to start with that character at the beginning of the film, and then through the process of your short or your feature or whatever you're working on, your character is going to be in a different place. So I think those are the films that really speak to me. And I think those are what every audience wants, is a film about transformation.
Mm-hmm. Patrick, can you add to that? Like, what is your process when you are working on a story and bringing it in a film, for example?
Well, it's different with sort of each project where an idea could come from. But when you're working in something like horror or science fiction, typically you're thinking about sort of bigger ideas. Horror movies traditionally have always been about what scares people or society at large, and same with science fiction. It's about a viewpoint of the world, and so. So that's always sort of where my ideas have come from. I made a short film called Infanticide that was just a really kind of quick gimmick movie. It's a comedy about parents living in North America with a one-child law. And so the movie is 15 minutes of these parents, couple killing their kids over and over again until they get the perfect child. And yeah, it was supposed to be funny. But anyways, I mean, it was a big idea. And so I guess kind of to the same point of what Deanne and Gerry are saying is that you want to come up with something that will reach and connect with an audience at large. That's the whole point of medium, is to connect and to convey your ideas and your thoughts and your viewpoint of the way that you see the world. And so this is what's really cool about doing a high school film festival in Newfoundland, is that, a lot of people are paid a lot of money to find out what kids, teenagers are thinking, how they talk, what they think is important. And my experience when I was a kid was they never really got it right. So now we get to see from you guys, from the high school kids, what is it that you guys feel is important, or what is it that you want to talk about, or what do you think is important in your world? How do you speak amongst your friends? Like, everybody is always curious about that. And by the time you become an adult, you've sort of had the weight of the world, and your ideas all get washed out in the end. But I always found, and I always look back at my time as making movies as a kid and stuff, and teenager, young adult. That's when my favorite of the projects I've done and the things that I've looked back more fondly has been at that period of time. So looking forward to seeing what everybody's got these days.
I want to kind of point for something that you said, Patrick. Do you think what is like a big difference between the adult films and like films by more younger generation? Do you think maybe, because some people said that they feel like maybe they would be taken less seriously because of their age. What are your opinions on that?
It's all about approach. You don't necessarily have to be taken seriously, but the way that you look at the world when you are 13, 14, 15, 16, into your sort of early 20s is just completely different. I'm almost 40, I'm in my late 30s, and the way that I look at the world now is just, it's not the same. And so you get sort of a almost a more pure, or like more unadulterated, I guess is probably the correct term, view of the way that things are. It's, things are a little bit more cut and dry. I remember being back then. And so, I wouldn't even worry really to any teenager, high school student. I wouldn't worry about being taken seriously. I would just really sort of think about what's important to you and what do you see in the world? What do you see in Newfoundland, your town, your schools? How do you view the adult world? And just go for it, and and let us get a peek in.
Awesome, thank you. Gerry, I want to go back to you. You say, bring your emotions in the film. And especially with what you did, such an emotional and personal thing that you went through, like breast cancer. How how do the students can put those emotions out there? How can they, like practically, how can they connect with their audience? How do you think the best way to do that?
I think if you want to make a documentary about something, you have to figure out, it has to be something that you're passionate about, because it's a lot of hard work to make a film. And making films are a risky business. It's you know, you're putting yourself out there on the line. So it has to be something that you are passionate about, that you are curious about, that you are really pissed off about, something that really affects you. And you know, so often, particularly in journalism school, they talk about objectivity. Well, you know, I would never be objective about a documentary that I've been making. I'm incredibly subjective because I'm so invested in what I'm doing. But the trick is to really listen with the intent to really hear and to really look, to really see what's going on, and to know, well, why is it that you are going to do this film? You're going to choose something that you want to make a film about, that it's a story. You want to tell a story to people, and you have to figure out, why am I the best person to do this? Why is it so important to me? And you know, it takes as much work to make a good film as it does to make a bad film. Making films is a lot of work. And sometimes people just get really hung up on the technology, when really the strongest element is the story that you are going to tell. And I learned that, for instance, with My Left Breast. Prior to My Left Breast, I worked with very professional, very skilled, high-end crews for the documentaries that I directed. And again, with My Left Breast, I couldn't do that. Peg and I just used a little prosumer camera. The production values weren't really, really great, but it was probably, we won over 20 awards for that all over the world. And it's because it's a film that's intimate. It's a film that's full of surprises, because it's not about breast cancer. It's about how do you live? How do you live when all this is happening around you? And it's funny. People say you laugh through your tears. So those are the kinds of surprises that you want, where you're going to look at something in a way that nobody has looked at before. They haven't looked at it from that vantage point. And that's why seeing documentaries made by younger folks is so important, because you are taking us somewhere. You are taking us on a journey. You are showing us something. You are helping us experience something through your eyes and through your vision. And I think it's like what Pat said, you know, we need to, to have a film festival with films done by high school students is just fantastic and bang on. So you got to find out, what's the story you want to tell? Why is it you? And then go do that story in a way that no one has. It's about finding your voice. So when I see a documentary, I'm not looking for some kind of objective piece of newsreel. I'm looking for the voice that's telling me a story. And and someone who's passionate about what they're doing, not objective, but passionately subjective. Yeah. Anyways, I'm so excited to see what people come up with for the folks who are going to do their documentary. 5 minutes. It's really hard. It's harder to do a really good, strong piece in 5 minutes than it is in a half an hour. But it's quite a challenge. And I think, you know, that it's about hearing the voice of the filmmaker. And I don't mean necessarily physically hearing the voice, but for the filmmakers to find a voice and to present it through the way that they tell the story. And they find the way of telling the story through the people that they have chosen to share the screen with.
Amazing, thank you. to continue with that, Deanne, how would you say, what advice would you give to the students when looking for those characters, looking for those people? What should they kind of notice about when they're choosing their actors? How would you do that?
Like in terms of like coming up with their ideas for their scripts, is that what you mean?
I mean, I guess also because Gerry said it really depends on who you choose, or maybe Gerry, if you want to answer that, I was just, you know, if you want to continue.
Well,
with that,
yeah, I
like,
guess
whatever.
for me, you know, it's about, it's not actors, it's people talking about their real lives.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, that's a little bit different, but it is also you know, once you ask someone to be on the screen and to be part I never made films about someone. I always felt I made films with someone. But Deanne can really talk about how she chooses
Yeah, that would be interesting to know.
to work with people, and who she chooses and why she chooses, if that's what you want to know about actors. Yeah.
I guess, like, you know, when I'm deciding who I would cast, I'm just thinking of like where it's, you know, high schoolers working with, probably will be working with their friends, you know, and I think it really, I guess I kind of want to go back and just talk about in terms of the story, and when you kind of coming up with your characters, that it's, I think it's important just to kind of keep it simple, you know, like in terms of, you know, it's under 5 minutes. Like if you're not going to start your script with a car crash, or, you know, or their surgery, or the house is on fire. I think, you know, just really be kind of realistic about the kind of stories that you're able to tell with the resources that you have. And, you know, you could have a very engaging short film about literally two people sitting at a table, and it's a conversation that could be incredibly engaging. So I would also, you know, think about, you know, I guess going back to what Pat's talking about and what Gerry is like, talking about a story that really speaks to you. My first short film was about a kid who's forced to take trombone lessons. And that was something that I was forced to do. I was in grade 5 and I wanted to play the flute, and I was given this awkward instrument. It was a trombone. You know, I was asthmatic, I was pudgy, I couldn't run the length of myself. And then now I had like this huge instrument to carry around. And you know, that was really what my film was about. And it was something that I had a personal experience about, and I felt like I could tell that story. And it wasn't a drama, it was a comedy. It was about this kid trying to get rid of her trombone, and it keeps coming back to her in weird and you know, unusual ways. And so I think when you're trying to come up with like your story or your characters, you know, I think it is kind of starting with like what you know, right, with what you know, and just keep it simple. I mean, it could literally be one shot.
I wonder, like, Dan, for you, what is something that you would have wanted someone to tell you when you just started out?
Sorry, I just need to get some water. Just 1 second.
Okay. Oh, sorry, it's okay. Well, once you refresh.
Can I jump in for a sec?
Yes, of course. I was actually about to go to you because I have a question just for you, but go ahead.
Okay, well, I was just going to sort of address the two things about story and about characters, and sort of echo what Gerry and Deanne was saying, is use what you got. Don't, you know, if you don't have access to elderly people, or, you know, don't write for that. And I've always loved working with actors that aren't professional actors. And that's how I started. I mean, we had a great program. I went to school in Gander Collegiate. We had a great media program that started me off with everything, knowledge and whatever. And we would always, we would just write for our friends and in college and stuff. And so same thing, right, with the people that are around you, and write characters that are to their strengths and stuff. Don't force people to be on camera if they're not going to be comfortable with it, you're going to be able to see it. And then also with story, and especially where it's this is like a 5-minute sort of thing, a huge mistake that people make when doing short films is they try to tell a story that's way too big, that spans too long. And especially when it comes to something that's like horror, where you're going to be, you know, building suspense and stuff, and there's going to be moments that you want to really draw out. Try to keep your story specifically for something that's about 5 minutes, and for horror, you know, there's advice for every sort of genre. So, but I'm just speaking to mine. You really will want to keep your story as concise and contained, I think, as possible. Or, you know, and there's exceptions to each rule. So I just want to say that too. But you know, a mistake that I always made starting out was that I would, you know, try to write something that was short. It would end up being about 20 pages long, or I would shoot and the first cut edit of it would be, you know, even 10 minutes, and then trying to get that down to 5 minutes. The story, you're cutting story beats out, things aren't going to be making as much sense as they did at first. So really sort of concentrate on keeping your story as bare minimum, as not necessarily simple, but just don't try to go too large. Don't try to say too much. Don't try to tell too much. And so that's all I just wanted to say about that.
That's awesome. I have a question specifically for you. What's the most important detail of a horror film? That's from one of our students.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, there isn't one, you know, you can choose though. You can choose. Sounds obviously a big one. You can get some scares pretty easily by having a very silent movie, and then bah, you know, you have like a jump scare. People find that cheap. I love that stuff. I think that anything that you can do to get your audience feeling like, you know, laughing, scared, jumping, or whatever, I think it's all good. So I mean, you could use sound. You could I mean, cinematography. You can you know, have stuff in the shadows, and like, and you know, what I recommend too is that if you what I always still to this day do, I'm writing a script right now, and like if I'm like trying to sort of like think of a scene, something comes to mind, I'll put on that scene, you know, like don't be afraid to be influenced by your favorite things. Go watch your favorite horror movie. Go watch your favorite horror movie scene. Why, what is it that, you know, is it the performance? Is it the cinematography? And like really sort of get creative with it. It's so much, well, it's always been, if you're creative, it's always been easy, but it's way easier now where you're not using like videotape or film or stuff that you only have a certain amount of, you know, you can, with your phone, you can experiment a lot more. Editing is way easier than back when I was doing stuff. You know, I would have been in school around the same time that Gerry was doing her first documentary, or not her first one, but the My Left Breast. So like we were doing reel to reel editing stuff, and like that would take forever, you know, and if you make a mistake, like your day is ruined, you know, you're going to want to get into a new career, you know, you just want to quit. But now with nonlinear editing and how simple it is, like you really have the opportunity to be able to experiment. And so, you know, so with cinematography, I mean, like if you wanted to really concentrate on that, shadows, people in and out of the light, it's a bit cliche, but you know, the whole thing about like, let me see if I can just like doing the underlighting there, you know, it's classic, but it's creepy, you know, it works. And so just really think about stuff like that, you know, like, you know, I guess like one of the things is like acting is like, it's a tricky thing because there's a lot of sort of a cliche that maybe the acting isn't the strongest in a lot of wide release horror movies, but you still need to have somebody that like can do a good scream, that can be scared, that can be intimidating and stuff like that. So, you know, a long way around to say that there isn't one thing that's the most important, but you can concentrate on something and really make it your own. That could be your thing.
Awesome. Let's see, I have another question here. I'm gonna give it to Deanne. Let's see, a student here asks, With a limited time of 5 minutes, what advice would you give in order to write a screenplay that is concise, yes, yet engaging? That's tough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it has to be under five minutes, then when you're writing, it should be 5 pages. When you think about, in terms of like, if you're going to write 20 pages of your script, then it's obviously a 20-minute film. I mean, I think in terms of trying to tell a good short film, there's always the element of surprise, like there's a turn. I mean, I think you should go watch a bunch of short films that are 5 minutes and kind of see what works and what doesn't, or think about, it's really like a well-crafted scene in a lot of ways. A short film is, it's something, it's the unexpected. It maybe, I mean, it's kind of comes down to this. If you're going to do a drama, then it has to be engaging. If you're going to do a comedy, then it has to be funny. If you're doing a horror, then it has to scare you. And so I would go watch the kind of films that you want to make, like I would never try to make a film like Pat does, like a horror film. I would make a terrible horror film because it's not my thing. It's not something that really speaks to me. So I think when you're kind of starting out, and what I did, I just watched all my favorite filmmakers and be shameless in trying to copy them. And through that, I think your own voice kind of comes out.
Can you tell me your editing process? How do you start that? What is your process? What is your approach to editing?
My process editing. Well, I always work with an editor. For me, I think an editor is like a second director, like this is sort of my approach to filmmaking, is that during production, I never feel like I'm ultimately telling the story. I'm just gathering moments. And then once I sit in the edit suite with my editor, that's when you really tell the story. So like, things could go terribly wrong if the scene, like maybe things aren't going, it's not exactly what you thought it was going to be in your head. And I can guarantee every person who, when you're trying to make your first film, it's not going to be exactly what's in your head, but it could be better. It could be on the day when you're actually filming the scene and you pictured, these two characters interacting. I think if you allow yourself that room for discovery, you might actually see something even more interesting. Maybe because your actor is going to prepare, they're going to come and they're going to bring something interesting to the table, right? Like maybe it's and just allow yourself to kind of discover it, which is not about editing. And so but I had the same process. Like once I'm in the edit suite, I'm also still allowing myself discovery. I mean, I'm always very clear about the story I want to tell, but at the same time, I'm open to letting other people. When I talk about my editor, to kind of show me something that I'm not seeing. So I always explore all the possibilities, and then at the end of the day, you kind of decide, this is how I see it. This is what speaks to me, or this is what. And I mean, when as a filmmaker, like for me, from making my first film to just having worked all summer in television, it's the same approach for me. I don't think I've changed. I think I've become a better filmmaker, but I'm still that stand-in for the audience. Like I still, like, if I feel it, then I believe an audience will feel it, and I always just trust my gut. But I think I wish when I was younger, I was like, what would I tell my younger self, right? And it would be take more risks. I mean, you're making this 5-minute film, like you will learn so much more from your failures. Like if you kind of just tried something crazy and it didn't work, than kind of just keeping it safe, you know, like I think we all have a story to tell, and just being able to, just do it your way. Like, you know what I mean? Like maybe, I think filmmaking is like trying to convince everybody to tell your story, right? So like, it's kind of like, that's what leadership is. Like, it's David, I think Fincher said, it's like getting 300 people to hold the paintbrush to paint the picture, but like, so it's sort of like, that's who you are, so like, you'll see it. And I think when early in my career, people had questions, I would feel like they were doubting me, but they're not doubting you. They're just trying to understand the story that you're trying to tell. And I think if I could give anyone's advice, is just be so kind and be grateful of everyone around you. And I think the best film experiences I've had is when I've empowered the people around me to help tell that story.
Wow, that was amazing. Gerry, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, and I want to tell a story about a film I made after my left breast called Pleasant Street. And it's I was in the hospital after I'd had another mastectomy, and I was in the hospital. And across the hall from me in the hospital was this beautiful young woman, Lita, who had melanoma. And then just up the hall from me was this great guy. He was a little bit older than Lita, and he had pancreatic cancer. And both Lita and Ken were told that they had 6 months to live, that their cancers were terminal. And we found out that we all lived on Pleasant Street, and Lita lived across the street from me, and Ken lived up the street from me. And I knew that the process of making my left breast really helped me get through what I was going through. And again, it's not about breast cancer. It's about love. It's about community. It's funny. It's sad. It's everything. So I went to Ken and Lita because, they were both told that they were going to die within, the latest 6 months. And I said, I made this film called My Left Breast. And I said, it really helped me go through, like I went through 6 months of chemo and radiation and surgeries, etc. And I said, would you folks like to make a film? I will make a film with you if you think that that will help you. And it did. It was an incredible experience. And we did things, again, it wasn't about melanoma, and it wasn't about pancreatic cancer. It was about, how do you live fully? How do you live fully? How do you live with love? How do you live in community when you know you're going to die? And there are times in it, again, when it's so funny. For instance, I said to Lita, what do you love to do? She said, I always wanted to be an actor. And she said, I love fashion and I love makeup. She was a gorgeous, gorgeous young woman, just stunningly beautiful. She said, I always wanted to be a model. And I said, hey, let's do a makeup and a costume session with you. And that's what we did. And we filmed it all. And you know what? It wasn't about the makeup. It wasn't about the costumes. But what happened was that while she was going through that, she started talking about her fears. She started talking about, I don't want to die. But you can't just sit somebody down in a chair and say, okay, tell me about how you feel now. And also Ken, this little tiny bit of a macho guy, not really super macho, but had always had real control of his life. And he loved the ducks at Bowring Park. So I said, hey, Ken, let's go feed the ducks at Bowring Park. And he was a little fragile. He was sick. He had surgery. And so he was going to try and feed the ducks. And he was afraid. And he'd never been afraid before in his life because he was a strong, virile man. but now he was not that well, and he couldn't move really fast, and the ducks surrounded him and they ran after him, and he said, this is what's happened to me. I'm afraid of a goddamn duck now. And that's what happens when, as Deanne spoke, and Pat, when you work with people, and the role of the director when you're making a film is to say, what's really happening here? What's really being said? So it's not about feeding the ducks, something else happened. And I'm sure when Pat and Deanne are on set, and something happens sometimes with the actors that are it's just totally a surprise. And often it's wonderful. And then something happens in the editing room. So I think, you know, for anybody who's considering doing a documentary, it's about, what do you want to do? What do you know, like you can make a 5-minute film about the climate crisis, and God knows we can never have too many films about that. But we all know that the climate is our planet's on fire, and it's flooding, and we're still using fossil fuels. We all know that. We all know that. So we don't need a film that says that's bad, that's bad, that's bad. We need a film that will reach right into our souls, reach right into our hearts to motivate us. And that's what Deanne and Pat were talking about too. Pat was saying, you know, how to make someone laugh, how to make someone feel. And Deanne was talking about that. You need to do that in documentaries as well. It's not about lecturing or finger wagging. It's about, how do you connect? Who are you making this for? How do you connect with your audience? What is it you want them to see and feel and experience? And how do you best do that? So if anybody's going to make a 5-minute documentary, I'd be happy to talk to them at any point. And basically the question you have to ask yourself, or have someone ask you, why do you want to do this? What is it that connects you with this? And then how do you want to do it? How do you want to make something happen in the process of filming that then will come alive on the screen?
Yeah, wow, that was so good. I wonder though, because you have so much experience with this and being able to bring those kind of emotion, someone here in the comments asked, how can we do that and not accidentally be cliche, use cliches, or even be a little bit predictable? How can they, I feel like you kind of already answered it, but what would you say about that?
Well, you know, again, it takes as much hard work to make a bad film as it does to make a good film. And it's so easy to fall into cliches. And that's where, as you know, look at, as Deanne said, look at filmmakers that you really, really like when you really, really like their work. But I think it's, you know, for documentaries, it's about, what am I doing? What am I bringing new and different here? What am I? And, you know, if ask yourself, if what I'm doing right now, is this a cliche? Ask yourself that. And if you're working with an editor or a producer, talk it over with them. But really, with documentaries, it's about building relationships with the people that you're filming. And helping people to tell their story. It's about distilling what's happening and making it possible for their voices to be heard. So, you know, people talk about talking heads, so I don't like talking heads. I did a film called The Vienna Tribunal. I was invited to go to Vienna because there were women from all over the world who were standing before a panel of international human rights judges. And they were telling their stories about the violations of them as women in whatever country they were from. And the stories were so horrendous. And I remember when I was asked to do this, I said, well, gee, I don't know, making a film about, people just standing up and talking, I'm not so sure if that would be really powerful. I said, it's going to be a lot of talking. And so I had a great crew, and they were from different parts of the world. And so we filmed all kinds of stuff outside of the testimonies. And then we filmed all the testimonies. And you know what? All that fancy stuff we filmed, the interviews, everything, we did not use. We used the simple testimonies. And it was so powerful. It was so powerful because people that we do not hear from were speaking their truth uninterrupted. And there was nothing cliche about it. And there was nobody objective. People were telling their life stories. And the role I saw for me as a director at that time was then to clear away the noise, to clear away the stuff so that these women's voices could emerge. And it was a surprise to me at how powerful it was, the simplicity of it. Nothing, no fancy technical tricks, no fancy anything, just those pure voices. It was amazing. But so you don't know. So it really is about, what is it? Who has entrusted you to tell their story? And how do you best let that happen? Sometimes it's the best, sometimes your best work is to get out of the way and not to impose anything on it, or to find creative ways for those stories, those voices to be amplified.
Thank you, Gerry.
So, yep.
Thank you for that. Patrick, do you mind sharing with us a moment you were very proud of, and how did you find yourself there?
Nice.
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of times where I have made something and sort of, I guess, like, had moments of thinking, I can't believe that I've done this, or, in a good way. And so, and throughout a bunch of different projects that have had their own sort of levels of success or not success. And so, but I guess, like, I've always been very proud of every project that I have considered to be like my project, that I was like the director and writer, and a lot of the cases editor. And I think that I think that you ensure that you could be proud of everything you're doing if you like, you're coming from it with sort of pure goals and pure intentions. So, like, I don't know. I mean, I wrote the feature film that I did. There's a scene in it that is, I think it's like, 7 or 8 minutes of just one continuous take with the camera moving throughout the house, and people dying and this, that. There's like special effects. There's a whole, like, and to what Deanne and Gerry were both saying, like, it was an entire crew of people working together for this. And so I guess, like, you look at that and be like, wow, like, there's, a dozen or so people all working towards the same goal, and you can be proud of that. And I guess sort of to even trump that, like, to be able to get a group of people together in general. And most people, most of the time, when you're going to make your very first project, it's going to be a volunteer project. Nobody's going to be getting paid. You might not have any money at all. And so I think that everybody that is, regardless of how well the project turns out, you should always feel proud that you're able to sort of get the troops, to motivate, to inspire people to come together, to give their time. And so that's what all you guys will be doing with your projects. You're going to be all there with a common goal. And, I have gone through my career, heard a lot of people say that they're going to make a movie or they talk about it. And if you make it, if you do it, then you are the 1 in 10. Most people never do it. Most people, they either lose focus, they lose motivation, they can't motivate people to come on board. And so if you can actually get together a group of people and put together a project, then that in and of itself is a huge achievement. It separates you from a huge pack of other people, and it's something to be proud of for sure.
Awesome. Thank you
Good
for
answer. I turned it around there.
that. It was awesome.
I don't know where I was going with that first.
It was great. I feel like we can use that to so many areas of just really showing up. I love that. Okay, somebody asked here. Someone said, now I'm motivated. Hiccup. Amazing. That's great. Okay, we have a question here. I think it will be for all three of you. Out of curiosity, who are your favorite filmmakers and what have inspired you to the most to become filmmakers? Deanne, let's start with you.
Okay. Well, I mean, I often have said that it was E.T., like seeing E.T. as a little girl had a huge kind of emotional impact on me, and just remembering how that film made me feel and the ability that I could tell a story to be able to, to kind of just capture an audience's attention. I think that there's something really powerful about that, and your storytelling. My favorite filmmakers. When I was starting out, I loved Wes Anderson. Was a filmmaker. Paul T. Anderson, Jane Campion, were some filmmakers that were. One of my favorite films is In the Mood for Love by Wong Kar-wai. Yeah, those are some of the filmmakers that kind of spoke to me starting out.
That's great. Okay, we have 2 more minutes. Gerry, do you wanna say yours?
There is something I want to say. I'm sorry, I'm going to probably not answer that question.
Go ahead.
But sound matters. The sound matters. And I've experienced that in a number of films that I have directed, where sometimes if the picture is kind of messed up, if you have the sound, though, a good, clear sound, that will carry it. But I have had moments of absolute, disappointment when the sound was really messed up and then you can't use it. And so I just want to, for those who are, if it's your first film, you're making a 5-minute film, pay attention to sound. Make sure that you get really good sound, and if you're not quite sure how to do that, get some help with that. Make sure you have some good mics. It's really, really important. I wanted to get that in. I've been influenced, by a number of films, and I'm way older than all of you, and I loved Norman Jewison's films. He's such a great storyteller. And Jane Campion and Margarita von Tratta, great feminist filmmakers. Margarita von Tratta from Germany. There's just great, just a lot of, and as a feminist myself, I've, to find filmmakers who showed women in very strong, positive roles or very complex roles. And also as a lesbian, how important it was for me to see films that would have members from the LGBTQ community just play their lives, that they were films about being gay or queer, but that it was just a matter of course that they were the story. So it's been good to see more diversity on the screen, particularly people of color, Indigenous. There's some great Indigenous work being done right now as well by Indigenous filmmakers. So yay. And then we're going to get all these fabulous young people from St. John's or Newfoundland and Labrador, and we're going to hear their voices and see things like we've not seen before from different perspectives. Then we'll be able to talk about them as some of our favorite filmmakers. How exciting is that?
And what a way to end this first hour. Thank you so much. Really, thank you so much for being here and sharing your thoughts, your ideas. I'm sure students, I mean, by the comments, they were very motivated. So we have a 5-minute break, and I'll see you all again at 8. Thank you for being here, guys.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks.
Good luck, everybody. Have fun.
Good luck. Yes.
Yeah, fun.
Thank
Have
you.
fun.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.